This is a short story produced by StoryStream called The Zombie Diaries of Josh aka Jawoodle, Melbourne, Australia, created by Christopher A. Lee and narrated by Michael Doyle. Thank you for listening to this story. If you could leave the name of the city you are listening from, it might randomly get kicked for our Zombie Snapshot series. And if you enjoyed this short story, please like and subscribe to the channel. Chapter 1. The Stream Where It All Began. The purple lights of Josh's streaming room bathed everything in their familiar, soothing glow. On the wall behind him, his custom Jawoodle neon sign buzzed faintly, casting a soft violet halo over his chair. The chat box was exploding with energy, the same kind of energy that made every gaming night feel like a party. All right, Josh said, laughing into his mic as he adjusted his headset. You legends want me to solo this horde night without traps? You're insane. But, you know what? Let's go. For science, the chat flooded with laughing emotes and purple hearts, a tradition on his channel. Purple was his thing, always had been. He shifted in his seat, tapping a few keys. His 7 Days to Die character sprinted across a moonlit wasteland, shovel in one hand, spear in the other. The digital zombies on screen snarled and sprinted. Pure chaos. The tension in the game world had his heart pumping, but it was the good kind, the fun kind. Until he heard it. Thump. Josh's fingers froze above the keyboard. His headset had picked it up too, a hollow, low thud, like someone banging a fist against wood. He chuckled nervously, glancing over his shoulder at his front door, just out of sight from the streaming camera. What was that? He said aloud, trying to keep his voice light. He turned back to the screen. Probably the wind. Or a possum. Melbourne possums are built different. The chat didn't let it go. Dude, you heard that? Someone at your door, bro. It's 7 Days to Die IRL. Zombie prank, lol. He shook his head, smiling. Yeah, good one, chat. Thump, thump. This time harder, faster. Not one spot either. It came from the front door and the side wall and, horrifyingly, somewhere near the back window. The smile drained from Josh's face. He pushed the mic slightly away. Hang on a sec, guys. He stood up, his purple hoodie, his lucky hoodie, sagged slightly off his frame as he moved cautiously toward the hall. The sound was clearer now without the game noises. Not knocking, pounding, animalistic. Through the frosted glass of the front door, he could just make out a silhouette, a figure, slumped forward, pressing something, a face, hard against the door. Oi! Josh called, his voice cracking slightly from the fear crawling into his throat. Are you all right, mate? No response. Just the slow, grinding squeak of flesh dragging against glass. The chat, still live behind him, was going wild. Turn your cam to the door. WTF is that? Run! Bro, it's happening IRL. Josh backed away instinctively, heart hammering. And then, with a crack of wood splintering, a second figure slammed into the side wall. The house shook. Somewhere outside, a car alarm began blaring. Sirens, dozens of them, rose into the night air. Josh turned back toward his computer setup, but he wasn't thinking about the game anymore. Reality was punching through the monitor, screaming at him. He scrambled to yank his headset off, grabbing his phone from the desk. No new notifications, no emergency alerts, nothing but the normal world, lying, pretending everything was still fine. Then the real terror set in. A hand, gray, shredded, clawing, smashed against the window near his kitchen. Cracks spiderwebbed across the glass. Josh stumbled back, cursing. He had to move. Now. He grabbed the closest thing he could, a heavy-duty shovel propped up by the back door, left there after he had dug a trench for his garden last weekend. Still muddy, still solid. Perfect. Thump, smash. The front window gave way in a shower of glass. The silhouette at the door spilled inward. Not a man. Not anymore. Its mouth was slack, jaw twisted unnaturally, teeth snapping toward the air. Pale skin hung off its bones like wet cloth. Its fingers were raw, bloody, nails ripped to shreds from clawing its way here. Josh didn't think. He swung the shovel. The metal blade struck the creature's shoulder with a sickening crack. It reeled, but didn't fall. Another crash behind him, more glass breaking. They were inside. He sprinted for the garage, shoving open the side door. His Supra, his beautiful, meticulously cared-for Supra, gleamed under the flickering overhead light. The purple racing stripes he had added just last month shone defiantly even in the chaos. Come on, he muttered, fumbling for his keys. The front door gave way completely behind him. He heard it slam against the inside wall. Keys, ignition, engine roaring to life. He threw the garage door opener. It groaned slowly upward. Too slow. Another zombie lurched into the garage, a woman this time, her Woolworth's uniform stained with blood. Josh gritted his teeth. He didn't want to kill her. But this wasn't a game. This wasn't respawn and reload. With a guttural yell, he swung the shovel again, connecting with the side of her head. She crumpled, twitching. Josh gunned the Supra forward, smashing through the half-open garage door in a shower of splinters. Freedom. For now. The streets outside were madness, cars abandoned at awkward angles, people running, some fighting. Others, hunched and staggering, were hunting. The purple of the Supra streaked through the chaos like a ghost of better times, a reminder of a world that was gone within a single sunset. Josh's hands were shaking on the wheel. His mind raced. Supplies, water, weapons, fuel. He needed to think. He needed to survive. He glanced at the passenger seat. There, tossed from a recent road trip and forgotten, was his purple hiking backpack. Small, bare bones, but it was something. A shred of Jawoodle, the gamer, was still alive inside him. Now it was time for Jawoodle, the survivor, to take over. The world had gone full 7 days to die, and this time, there were no respawns. Chapter 2. Purple Tape and Rising Night. The Supra's engine purred beneath him like a beast that somehow understood the world had changed. Josh, Jawoodle, kept his hands tight on the wheel, knuckles white. The city outside his windshield was falling apart. Sirens blared in every direction, and plumes of smoke curled from buildings behind shattered glass storefronts. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the skyline in warm oranges that felt wrong now. He hadn't said a word since crashing out of his garage. His mouth was dry. His mind buzzed like bad Wi-Fi. Okay, he muttered to himself. Supplies first. Water, food, bandages, something sharp. He turned onto Swanston Street, weaving past a flipped tram and an abandoned taxi still ticking from a recent fire. Up ahead, a Woolworth's, miraculously untouched for now. Josh skidded into the side alley, parking behind a rusted dumpster. He killed the engine and took a deep breath. He glanced at the backpack beside him, still half-zipped from its last hiking trip. Inside, a water bottle, half a protein bar, a multi-tool, and blessedly, a roll of purple duct tape. Can't make this up, he whispered with a weak grin. He took the shovel with him and crept to the Woolworth's entrance. The automatic doors stood half open, twitching like they couldn't decide if they still served a purpose. Inside, the silence was haunting. Fluorescent lights flickered above rows of stocked shelves. No customers, no workers, just a weird hum, and somewhere in the distance, dripping. He moved cautiously past the produce section, grabbing bottles of water, protein bars, and a small first aid kit. He found a rack of kitchen knives, the kind you'd see in a discount camping bin, and immediately taped one to a broken broom handle he found near a utility closet. He stepped back to admire his work. His first homemade weapon? A proper spear. The base of the handle, wrapped in purple tape, made him smile despite the horror. "This one's for the purple gang," he whispered. Then he heard it. Not thumping, scraping. From deeper in the store, toward the cold storage. Josh froze. The sound was wet, dragging, like something slick being pulled across tile. He gripped the spear tighter and inched forward, past frozen meats and tipped over baskets of vegetables. He peeked around the end of the aisle, and there it was. It didn't see him, yet. A twisted human form, dragging its belly behind it, arms long and muscular, too long, with clawed hands digging into the tile. Its skin was greenish-gray, peppered with small black thorns. Spines? It moved low, predator-like, slow but deliberate. Its knees were bent backwards, like an insect, and its head swiveled, side to side, with short, jerky snaps. It was unlike anything he'd seen. Josh's mouth dried up. He recognized the movement. Like a hunter, like a zombie with instincts. The bindi crawler. It stopped suddenly, sniffed the air, then turned. Josh ducked back, too late. It let out a hiss, not loud, but sharp and cutting, and lunged. He raised the spear just in time. The hybrid slammed into him, claws reaching for his legs, teeth snapping just inches from his shin. He drove the spear downward, through its shoulder. It didn't scream. It just twitched, like pain was foreign to it. Josh pulled back, kicked it hard in the side, and ran back down the aisle, knocking over cereal boxes and shelves behind him. It scrambled after him, claws scraping so fast it sounded like a swarm of insects. He leapt over a checkout lane, turned and jabbed the spear forward. The blade caught it under the jaw. It froze, mouth open, blood drooling. Josh twisted. It collapsed with a sickening crack. He backed away, panting hard, staring at the motionless body. A human. No, not human anymore. Not even just undead. Something worse. Something evolved. Josh wiped blood off his face with his sleeve. He glanced back at the backpack, then at the knife-laden spear. This was real. This wasn't just a virus. This was mutation, adaptation, and the sun was nearly gone. He loaded what he could into the Supra. Water, food, tape, a small utility flashlight, some extra knives, bandages. He tucked the purple spear into the back seat. As he pulled back onto the street, he noticed the wind had died. The city felt heavier. The air was thicker. And from behind him, down a long alley near the tram station, he heard something he would never forget. A scream. High-pitched, constant, piercing, like glass breaking over and over again. It echoed across buildings. Windows shattered. The birds in the trees took flight in a frantic spiral. And then, silence. Josh floored the accelerator, not looking back. He didn't know what had screamed, but he knew one thing. He was no longer alone in this city. Chapter 3. Don't make noise after dark. Josh's hands were cramping on the steering wheel. The Supra's headlights cut through the empty street ahead, illuminating overturned cafe tables, abandoned bicycles, and dark shapes slumped in alleyways. The last threads of daylight had vanished behind the skyline, and with it, something had changed. The air was thicker. Every sound, the engine, the tires, his own breath, seemed too loud. He knew what was coming. He'd heard the scream. He'd seen what one hybrid zombie could do. Now he was in the dark, and this wasn't 7 days to die anymore. He swerved past an abandoned Kohl's delivery truck and slowed when he saw the green glow of a BP station up ahead, its tall sign flickering like a dying candle. The pumps looked intact. No lights on inside the store. He coasted in silently, killed the engine and sat still, listening. Nothing but wind. He grabbed his shovel, stepped out of the car, and crept toward the pump. No power, no hum. But as he circled the kiosk, he spotted the emergency backup manual pump system tucked behind a small door marked Service Use Only. A thin grin cracked across his face. He could work with that. He opened the Supra's boot and started quietly uncoiling the siphon hose. His breath fogged in front of him despite the warmth of the night. Not from cold, but from adrenaline. He had the nozzle in, cranking slowly. Thunk, Funk, the fuel glugged into the tank. Then, a noise. Not from the city, not from the shadows, from above. A scream, louder this time. Close. It split the night like a flare, echoing across rooftops. Josh dropped the pump. From across the street, zombies woke up. Not like before. Not sluggish, confused, stumbling. These ones snapped to life like animals. They turned, locked eyes, and they ran. Shit! Josh yanked the pump free, slammed the tank shut, and sprinted toward the driver's seat. But the first zombie was already on him. Fast, arms pumping like a sprinter, mouth wide. Josh spun and raised the shovel. The metal met flesh with a wet crunch, but the runner didn't fall. It tumbled, rolled, and came back even faster. He dove into the car, slammed the door, and locked it just as the zombie hit the window full force. It shrieked, spit and blood smearing the glass, and behind it, more were coming. Then, in the middle of the street, he saw it, standing perfectly still. Not running, not attacking, just waiting. It was tall, skin stretched tight around a too-wide mouth. Its jaw had been ripped open and sewn back at the corners, held in place by surgical wire. Its throat bulged, throbbing. Its eyes were milky and useless, yet somehow it saw him. Then it opened its mouth and screamed. Josh clapped his hands over his ears, teeth grinding. The windows vibrated. His mirror cracked. He felt blood tickle his left nostril. Every zombie in the surrounding blocks, maybe more, changed direction. Toward him, the screamer. The car was his only chance. He gunned it. Zombies pounded on the sides as he tore out of the station, one rolling up the hood and flying off the back. But they were chasing him. All of them. He took a hard left onto Elizabeth Street, skidding around debris, dodging pedestrians turned monsters. But one kept pace. He checked the rear view. It was quadrupedal, lanky, hairless, its limbs twisted like a dog, but its face, it was human, part human, the bushland mutt. It sprinted beside the car, scraping its claws against the passenger window. Josh veered left, trying to lose it in a side alley. It followed, sprinted up a dumpster, leapt onto the roof of the Supra. No! He slammed the brakes. The mutt flew forward, hit a light pole, and went limp. But he wasn't alone. Zombies were everywhere. He needed to lose them, fast. He turned off all lights, swerved behind a crumbling construction site, and killed the engine. Darkness, breathless silence. He sat still, heart pounding. A minute passed, then 5. The horde passed, drawn to the noise, chasing echoes of the screamer. Josh let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He was soaked in sweat. His hands were bleeding, from gripping too tight, or maybe from the screamer's sonic assault. He didn't know. He opened the glove box, found a purple cloth he used to clean his steering wheel. He stared at it. Then, with trembling hands, tore it into strips and wrapped it around his new spear shaft, reinforcing the grip. "Can't let them take me," he whispered. Then, slowly, carefully, he started the car again and drove, away from the city center, away from the screamer, towards somewhere, anywhere he could hide before sunrise. Because now he knew the truth. Night didn't belong to him anymore. Chapter 4. No Easy Way Out. The Supra's engine was whisper quiet as Josh rolled past the shattered outskirts of the city. He kept the lights off again, letting the silver glow of the moon light his path through back streets and broken lanes. Every street lamp that flickered made his heart race. Every shape in the dark could be one of them. He was bleeding time. He knew that. The Hume Highway, the inland road to Sydney, was only 20 minutes from here under normal conditions. But tonight, the world wasn't normal. Nothing was. He drove past a shattered bus stop, a burning servo, and then he saw it, a green road sign, bent at the base, but still legible in the dark. Hume Highway, Sydney, 850 kilometers. His gut flipped with cautious relief. "Come on, don't be blocked," he whispered, accelerating. He made it 3 blocks. Then hit a wall of chaos. Abandoned cars, dozens of them, choked the on-ramp like a graveyard. Some were crashed, others just left with doors wide open. Flashing hazard lights blinked from a few, casting shadows across unmoving bodies on the road. He slammed the brakes and coasted to a stop. "Of course," he muttered. There was no going through, not unless he did it on foot, or cleared a path himself. Neither sounded appealing. He stepped out, shovel in hand, spear slung across his back, and moved cautiously between the wrecks. It was eerily quiet. And then he heard it. Breathing. Not like the zombies. Not that wet, hungry rasp. Whispers. Voices. He dropped low behind an overturned SUV and peeked through the window. 3 people. Hooded. Dirty. Human. They were going car to car, searching glove boxes, prying open trunks. Looters. One of them had a machete. Another carried what looked like a broken cricket bat. The third held a crowbar slick with old blood. Josh froze. They weren't infected. Not yet. But they weren't friendly either. "Gas tank's dry," one muttered. "Move on." "Any food?" the other asked. Josh backed away slowly, keeping low. He didn't want to fight, but he stepped on a glass bottle. Crack. All 3 heads snapped in his direction. "Oi! Someone's here! Check the cars!" Josh sprinted. They followed. He weaved through the wrecks, leapt onto a flatbed truck, and rolled down the other side, straight into an open construction lot. A wheelbarrow, scattered tools, a roll of fencing wire and duct tape. He grabbed both and kept running. The looters were still behind him, but slower now. They weren't sprinters, not like the zombies. He ducked behind a concrete barrier and braced himself, spear ready. But before they could round the corner, they stopped. Silence, and then screaming. But not from Josh, from them. He peeked over the edge and saw one of the looters being dragged backward by something tall, thin, and wrapped in cane-like vines. Its arms were elongated and plant-covered, its jaw unhinged and lined with teeth, blackened by rot. It moved like a puppet on broken strings, arms whipping with unnatural speed. The cane fiend. It pulled the looter into the brush that had overtaken the fencing and vanished. The others ran. They didn't look back. Josh did. And he saw another one, not like the vine-covered thing. This one was burnt, its skin blistered and cracked like meat left too long on a fire. Its body glowed faintly orange at the edges, smoke rising from its back. The embered one. It stepped out from a half-destroyed construction trailer and looked straight at him. Josh didn't wait. He bolted. The embers flared, and the hybrid gave chase, leaving flaming footprints behind. Its breath smelled of smoke and blood. Its hands were melted and glowing. Josh darted behind the cement mixer, spun with the shovel, and struck it across the face. Bad move. A spray of superheated pus exploded on contact. It burned through his hoodie like acid. He screamed, rolled, and used the fencing wire to trap its legs. The embered one fell, flailing, then collapsed as the wire bit deep into its flesh and sliced through its tendons. Smoke filled the air. Josh ripped off his hoodie and tossed it aside, patting out the sparks from his shoulder. Burns, blisters, but alive. He stumbled back to the Supra, duct tape in one hand, wire wrapped around his new purple spear. His vision blurred, chest heaving. He was out of the city now, but the world wasn't any safer out here. He looked north, toward Sydney, and whispered, only 800 more kilometers of hell. Chapter 5. Last Orders at the Roadhouse. The Supra purred down the Hume Highway, its once shiny purple streaks now caked in grime, dried blood, and dust. Josh's muscles ached from the burns on his shoulder and the rough road. His stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't eaten since before everything went sideways. He needed a break. He needed shelter. Ahead, a battered green sign leaned against a twisted fence. Welcome to Euroa. Population 3,300. But how many were left? Josh slowed, turning onto a crumbling exit ramp lined with abandoned cars and skeletal trees. The town was quiet. Too quiet. A rusted diner caught his eye on the corner, a classic Aussie Roadhouse. Its neon sign buzzed weakly. Steak, burgers, brekkie all day. There were no lights inside. But there were shapes. Josh coasted into the dirt lot and parked behind a battered Holden ute, careful to keep the Supra shaded by the building. He wrapped his burned arm tighter with his scavenged cloth, grabbed his purple-taped spear, and approached. Flies buzzed around the entrance. The heavy glass door stood half ajar, hanging off one hinge. Josh nudged it wider with the butt of his spear. Ding ding! The doorbell chime, way too loud, echoed through the diner. Inside, booths torn open, chairs knocked over, plates smashed across the floor, and corpses, some fresh, some old, and some moving, slowly, their heads lifted as one. Like marionettes on strings. They were waiting, maybe 10 of them. Kitchen workers in blood-stained aprons, waitresses missing patches of hair, a man in a trucker cap with half his throat chewed away. Josh swallowed hard. If he wanted food, water, any chance of surviving the next night, he had to clear it. No choice. He gripped the spear, shifted his weight, and stepped inside. The first one, the trucker, stumbled forward, arms outstretched. Josh planted the spear tip just under its chin and shoved hard, driving it back into a broken jukebox with a wet crack. It twitched once and went still. The others moved faster now, sensing prey. He weaved between tables, using narrow spaces to bottleneck them. One waitress lunged. He sidestepped and smashed the shovel across her temple. Another, a cook, came at him swinging a greasy spatula like a weapon. Josh ducked low and jabbed the spear upward, catching it in the soft meat beneath its ribs. It collapsed in a twitching heap. Breathless, he pressed against the counter, surveying the carnage. 5 down, 5 to go. He spotted an opportunity. A metal rack toppled over near the kitchen, trapping 2 of the undead under its weight. They snarled and clawed, but couldn't reach him. Good enough. 3 left, still mobile. 1 was limping badly, broken leg. The other 2 were faster, fresher. Josh baited them toward a tipped-over fridge, then vaulted it, forcing them to clamber awkwardly over. He used the seconds they wasted to thrust the spear deep into one's eye socket. It dropped. The last fresh one shrieked and grabbed his spear, almost wrenching it away. Josh let go, let the zombie stagger back under its own weight, and grabbed the shovel instead. One clean overhead swing. The head caved like a dropped melon. Silence, except for the 2 trapped under the rack, still snapping their teeth like rats. He circled wide, avoiding them for now. Josh wiped his face, leaving a bloody streak across his cheek. The diner was his, for now. He scavenged quickly. He even found a half-full can of purple spray paint behind the counter, probably meant for graffiti removal. Josh grinned. He popped the lid, and on the side of the fridge, quickly tagged a small purple J, a quiet claim on this small victory. Jawoodle was still alive, but the sun was dipping low again, fast, and with it, the rules would change. He heard them before he saw them. Outside, low, rapid footfalls, growls, scrapes. The night runners were waking. He had minutes, maybe less. Josh sprinted through the kitchen, found a narrow service hallway, and kicked open the back exit. A rusted ladder clung to the side wall, leading up to the flat metal roof. He didn't think. He climbed. The metal was hot from the day's heat, burning his fingers through the cloth. But he didn't stop. He hauled himself up just as the first pack of sprinting zombies burst into the diner below, a blur of claws and teeth. They howled, snarled, sprinted into walls and tables, sniffing, searching, but they didn't look up. Josh flattened himself against the rooftop, heart hammering. He pulled a battered purple cloth over his backpack, using it as rough camouflage, and he waited. Through the cracks in the roof's tarred surface, he could hear them, tearing apart what was left of the world below. Chapter 6. Upgrade Day. Josh stirred awake under the dull pink light of early morning, his back aching from the diner rooftop's warped tin. For a few seconds, he forgot where he was. Then he heard the distant moan of something shuffling down the street and remembered everything. He sat up slowly, peeking over the roof's edge. The streets of Euroa were mostly clear now. A few slow-moving walkers lingered in alleys or doorways, but the sprinting nightmare pack had vanished with the sunrise. Josh wiped his eyes, grabbed his spear, and descended the ladder. Today wasn't for running. Today was for building. House by house, he moved carefully through the town. He avoided corpses, broke in quietly, and scavenged every pantry, toolbox, and drawer he could. At one house, he found a half-working radio, crackling with broken emergency broadcasts on loop. At another, he found a locked gun cabinet, useless in Australia's laws, and the ammo inside was long gone. But duct tape, batteries, a rechargeable lantern, and a rusted barbecue lighter all went into his growing stash. By midday, Josh had a solid haul. He found a battered canvas backpack, stitched with a faded purple logo. He smiled at that. Fate was still throwing him purple bones. But his best find of the day came at the Euroa Book Den, a tiny, leaning bookstore sandwiched between a pharmacy and an old fish and chip shop. The front door had been cracked open by something, or someone, but there were no signs of fresh blood inside. He crept through narrow aisles stacked high with yellowed books. The silence was thick. Dust danced in shafts of sun slicing through broken blinds. Then, on a display shelf near the back, he spotted something that made him stop in his tracks. Outdoor Survival and DIY Mechanic Mods, a bush magazine wrapped in plastic, its cover featuring a cartoon of a man lighting a pitchfork on fire. He turned the page and blinked. It had step-by-step diagrams, makeshift flamethrower tips, resin porch wraps, even how to safely rig a burning blade using lighter fluid and a ceramic cloth base. Josh let out a small laugh. "This is it," he said to no one, thumbing through it. He grabbed the lighter from earlier, a roll of torn Teflon cloth he found in a tool cabinet earlier, and some old barbecue fluid from the diner's back grill. He worked for an hour, sitting in the old fish and chip kitchen, carefully wrapping and modifying the head of his shovel. When he was done, he stood, tested the lighter's trigger, and whoosh, a stream of flame raced up the cloth for 2 seconds before dying out, just enough to ignite and intimidate. He grinned. "All right, you flaming bastards," he said. "Say hello to the Chlamydia Mod, because once it touches you, it burns and sticks around way too long." He nearly laughed himself off his feet. That evening, he stopped at the edge of town, a BP gas station, its roofs lower and flatter than the last. There were signs of struggle, claw marks on the walls, bullet holes in the window glass. But it was quiet now. He climbed a back ladder and laid out his gear. As the sky darkened, he could feel it again. The shift. The air changed. Like gravity was bending. Like something ancient was waking up beneath the streets. And then he heard the growl. Low. Close. Then claws on metal. He crawled to the edge of the roof and looked down. 1. Then 3. Then 12. Zombies. Not shamblers. Sprinters. And one of them was already climbing the ladder. Josh leapt up, shovel in hand. The night was just beginning, and he was about to find out if the Chlamydia Mod really lived up to the hype. Chapter 7. Hold the Roof. Josh braced the edge of the gas station roof, watching as the first sprinter began its rapid ascent up the ladder. It moved like an animal, arms pumping, legs kicking. Its fingers were bloody stubs, torn from scraping metal. But it didn't care. It just wanted him. He swung. The Chlamydia Mod hissed to life as he struck the zombie skull mid-ladder, the flame igniting on impact, sizzling flesh and bone. The creature howled, slipped, and fell back into the darkness. Josh took a sharp breath. His heart was racing. Sweat soaked his shirt. His burns stung with every movement. And below, the shadows shifted. More. Dozens more. They were climbing now, two at a time, using each other as stepping stones, grabbing onto the side rails of the ladder, hauling themselves up in packs. The scrape of claws on steel was constant. The hissing, snarling, shrieking, it filled the night like a dying orchestra. Josh backed up. He yanked a loose panel of metal siding from the rooftop's edge and wedged it over the ladder's top rungs. A makeshift barricade. It bought him 5 seconds, maybe less. Then the first one broke through again. A sprinting waitress from the diner, eyes gone milky white, face blistered. Josh didn't hesitate. Swing, ignite, burn. The Chlamydia Mod carved through her torso in a wave of flame. She collapsed, twitching, rolling off the rooftop like a broken log. The second one leapt clean over the barricade. Josh sidestepped and kicked it mid-air, sending it flying into a rooftop air duct. The crunch of its bones was satisfying, but temporary. Another climbed, then another, then 3 at once. He turned to run, barely avoiding a hand grabbing his ankle. He circled the rooftop, forcing them to chase him along narrow ledges and roof piping. One fell. 2 more took its place. It was endless. By midnight, the roof was a war zone. Corpses smoldered. The edges were slick with blood and burnt flesh. Josh's arms were covered in shallow cuts. His burns flared with pain every time the flame whooshed. His muscles were screaming. His hands were cramping. The Chlamydia Mod was nearly out of fluid. He grabbed a nearby brick, chucked it down the ladder. It struck one in the face, didn't slow the rest. He reached into his backpack, yanked out a metal wrench, and taped his last spare knife to the end. A backup spear. It didn't have flame, but it would pierce. They climbed again. He stabbed and screamed. By 3 a.m., his body was on autopilot. Strike, block, kick, swing, move. He had no idea how many he had killed. He just knew they kept coming. At one point, a hybrid joined them. Its body was covered in melted clothing and shards of glass, like it had come from a burning wreck. Its arms were longer than they should be. Its breath wheezed like broken lungs. Josh recognized it from the bookshop drawings. A second embered one. It spit a stream of blackened bile across the rooftop, igniting instantly. Josh rolled just in time. The flames scorched his bag, but missed his legs. He lunged, drove his purple spear through its throat, twisted, watched it collapse into fire. He was panting, dizzy, done. But he wasn't dead. Not yet. By 5 a.m., the sky began to pale, and with it, the zombies changed. The climbers began to slow. The sprinting ones tripped more often. Their snarls turned into groans. By sunrise, only silence remained. The rooftop was littered with corpses, scorch marks, broken tools. Josh sat in the middle of it all, drenched in blood, smoke, and ash. The Chlamydia Mod sat next to him, blackened at the tip, still smoldering. He stared out at the rising sun and smiled, barely. "Morning, legends," he whispered hoarsely. "Still here." Chapter 8. Running on Fumes. The rising sun cast long shadows across the highway as Josh drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on his lap, bandaged and blistered. His eyes were red. He hadn't slept, not really, just brief, twitching lapses in awareness while slumped in the driver's seat. But the quiet, it was welcome. The Supra hummed forward, its dashboard warning light blinking softly. Fuel low. Josh sighed. "I know," he muttered. "I'm looking. The highway stretched endlessly in both directions, dotted with husks of cars, overturned trucks, and blackened scorch marks where battles had gone badly for someone else. He passed a sign. Next fuel, 12K, bring your own hope. He gave a dry, bitter chuckle. 12 kilometers later, he pulled off the main road onto a cracked concrete lot. A fuel depot stood ahead. Old-school metal drums, a way station, and 3 fuel pumps half crushed by a fallen awning. The place was quiet. Too quiet. Josh coasted in, parked beside the least damaged pump, and shut off the engine. The silence that followed was thick and buzzing, like the air itself held its breath. He grabbed his purple backpack, checked his spear, and approached on foot. "All right," he whispered. "1 tank of fuel. No hero stuff." The front office door creaked open with a nudge. Inside, faded flyers, an overturned chair, blood on the counter, and a smell. Rot. Meat left out in the sun. He gagged behind his sleeve, but he saw it. The fuel access key still hooked on the pegboard behind the desk. He stepped behind the counter, grabbed the key, and turned back. Thump. From the garage door. Something hit it. Hard. Josh froze. Thump, thump. Then silence. Then claws on metal. He backed up slowly, didn't breathe. Then he saw it emerge from the shadows. Slender, covered in soot and dragging chains. Its body was blackened, but not burnt. It moved like a puppet, disjointed and twitchy. A new hybrid. Its eyes locked on him. Josh bolted. He dove through the side exit and circled around the back of the depot. The hybrid smashed through the garage door behind him, its chains slapping concrete like whips. Josh turned, pulled the lighter from his pocket, and clicked it against the Chlamydia Mod. Foosh! The hybrid shrieked, recoiled, but didn't stop. It was fast. Faster than any daytime zombie should have been. Josh swung wide, missed. It lunged, tackled him to the ground. He rolled, kicked up with both feet, sending it crashing into a stack of fuel barrels. It hissed. He didn't wait. He lunged forward and buried the burning shovel into its chest. The cloth ignited fully. Fire spread across the hybrid's torso. It writhed, screamed, then collapsed in a pool of flame and melted chain links. Josh sat back, panting. Black smoke curled into the sky. If anything was nearby, they'd be coming now. He didn't waste time. He found an emergency backup drum, siphoned what he could into a rusted jerry can, and filled the Supra enough to get him moving again. Before leaving, he walked to the side of the office, pulled the purple spray paint from his bag, and marked the wall. Not safe, keep moving, J, a warning, and a signature. He drove north again, the Supra rattling slightly now, its purple shine fading under layers of dust and death. He passed Yass without stopping. Too many overturned trucks, too many corpses. By evening, Sydney was less than 250 kilometers away, but Josh didn't feel closer. He felt hunted. The sky was turning orange again. Night would come, and he was running out of safe rooftops. Chapter 9. The Bitten and the Buried. The skyline was changing. The closer Josh got to Sydney, the more signs of civilization he saw, and all of it in ruins. Skyscrapers stood like burned-out skeletons in the distance. Billboards slumped over freeways. Black plumes of smoke twisted skyward, hinting at fires long since died out, or still burning somewhere unseen. He kept the Supra rolling slow, weaving through abandoned vehicles along the crumbling freeway shoulder. He hadn't seen another human in days, until now. He crested a bend near a shattered overpass, and there, in the median, a small group huddled around a dying fire. 3 of them, 2 men, 1 woman, dusty, armed with makeshift gear, rebar clubs, a chainsaw that clearly hadn't worked in weeks, and 1 hunting knife barely hanging together. Josh stopped the car, stepping out carefully, spear in hand, not raising it. "Friendly," he called, "just passing through." 1 man, tall, bald, wiry, stood first. The woman behind him watched with tired eyes, hands gripping a rusted pole. The last man, a younger guy, maybe early 20s, sat slumped against the guardrail, shivering. The tall one nodded. "You armed?" "Only what I've built," Josh said, holding up the Chlamydia Mod, its burnt edges still scorched from the last hybrid. That earned him a smirk. "You name it?" Josh grinned. "Yeah, Chlamydia Mod, burns and lingers." The tension cracked, if only a little. They let him sit by the fire. Names were exchanged. The tall man was Dax, the woman, Marley, the younger man, Leo. They'd escaped from a failed evac center south of Goulburn, been walking for days, barely eating. Leo had twisted his ankle 2 nights ago, and, more importantly, had a bite wound on his forearm, hidden poorly under a bloody bandage. Josh noticed it immediately. So did Dax, so did Marley, but no one said it aloud. As the sky began to darken, Dax pointed toward a construction site up the road. "Fuel. Tools. Maybe gear," he said. "Could be our last good chance before we get to the city." Josh hesitated. Night was coming. He'd seen what that meant. But they needed the supplies. He drove the group up the road, parking behind the skeleton of an unfinished housing development. Framed walls, pallets of materials, rusting scaffolding, everything had that ghost town feel. Tools lay scattered. A wheelbarrow full of bricks was tipped over near a cement mixer. They moved fast. Josh found wire, gloves, rope, and a small toolkit. Marley found canned goods stashed in a half-built garage. Dax uncovered a solar-powered lantern still working. Leo wandered alone, too pale, sweating. Josh pulled Marley aside. "He's not going to make it." She clenched her jaw. "We know." Before they could say more, a scream erupted from the far side of the site. "Leo." They ran. He was on the ground, 2 hybrids towering over him. One was a bindi crawler, moving fast, limbs spiked and sharp. The other, worse. It had no face, only a mass of open gums and a shredded windpipe that whistled violently as it screamed. The screamer. It had found them. Before anyone could act, the scream pierced the air, a horrifying, gurgling howl that shook dust from the scaffolding. Josh's ears rang. Marley fell to her knees, Dax covered his head, and from the trees beyond the site, they came. Dozens, then hundreds. Zombies, hybrids, sprinters, all sprinting for the construction site. Slinging his arm over his shoulders, the younger man groaned, his bite now blackening, his breathing rapid. "We can't run with him," Dax yelled. Josh ignored him. "Get to the scaffold." They scrambled up, scaling rebar and beams as the swarm poured into the lot. Josh kicked a runner off the ladder. Marley threw bricks at a bindi crawler trying to scale the wall. Dax stabbed the screamer with a pipe. Once, twice, but it shrieked again before finally collapsing. The damage was done. Josh fought like hell. The Chlamydia Mod lit up the night again. A burning shovel crashing down on snapping jaws and clawing hands. Flames spilled over the edges of scaffolding, setting lumber stacks on fire. It was chaos. And then Leo fell. Mid-climb, his hands gave out. He dropped. They watched from above as the hordes swarmed him. He screamed for 3 seconds. Then nothing. By dawn, the fire still smoldered. Josh, Marley, and Dax sat in silence at the edge of the rooftop. Bodies below twitched in the ashes. No more hybrids, no more movement. Dax finally said it. "We should have done it earlier, the bite." Josh didn't answer. He reached into his bag, pulled out the purple spray paint, and marked the wood beside them. "Leo, one of us, never one of them." They buried what was left in the construction sandpit. Josh said nothing else. He just drove. Chapter 10. Dottie. They drove in silence. The ruins of the outer Sydney suburbs passed by. Smashed mailboxes, sun-faded playgrounds, crumbling driveways dotted with scorched cars. Josh sat behind the wheel, blinking slowly. His eyes ached. His hands were raw, the purple grip tape on his spear now stained, dark, and peeling. Marley sat beside him, arms crossed, lost in thought. Dax rode in the back, dozing off, mumbling in his sleep. No one spoke about Leo, not directly. The road curved through a quiet cul-de-sac lined with two-story brick homes, mostly intact. Josh slowed. He saw one with a solid roof, no sign of forced entry, and a steel gate half-closed in the front. It called to him. He pulled the Supra into the driveway and turned off the engine. "This one," he said. Marley didn't argue. The house was quiet, dust-covered but not ransacked. They cleared it room by room. No bodies, no blood. Just echoes of lives once lived. Family photos, a knocked-over bowl of plastic fruit, a welcome to our home mat, faded from sun and time. Josh claimed the garage. It had a workbench, an old mattress, a few battered storage tubs. He found nails, fencing wire, a hammer, and a length of corrugated tin he used to block the side windows. Dax sealed off the front gate with chain and wire. Marley checked the pantry, still had canned beans, tea bags, and powdered milk. It wasn't heaven, but it was safe, for now. That night, Josh sat on the roof with a warm bottle of water and a quiet mind. No hordes, no screams, just the sound of wind rustling eucalyptus trees in the yard. He stared at the stars. It was the first time he'd looked up in days. Then he went back inside and checked the attic, mostly junk and Christmas ornaments. But in the corner, under a dusty blanket, he found something strange. A drone case. He flipped the latches open. Inside, Josh smiled. "Looks like we're adding another member to the crew." The next morning, he sat on the back porch, sunlight warming his face, and powered it on. The blades spun to life with a soft whine. He flew the drone up and out across the landscape, over rooftops, roads, distant buildings still smoldering. It wasn't perfect, but it gave him something he hadn't had in days. Vision, awareness, tactical advantage, hope. He named it on the spot. Dottie. "Let's go, Dottie," he said softly, watching the feed on the controller. "You're my eye in the sky now." Dottie buzzed over the neighborhood, scanning slowly. No immediate threats, just space, time, a breath. Josh leaned back in the chair, spear resting beside him. Chlamydia Mod cooling in the shadows. He wasn't healed, but he was alive. And for now, that was enough. His story wasn't over. He was just getting started.